Hi everyone, I hope you're well. I'm Callum at Repair Wins, and I've got this 2019 MacBook Air which has seen better days. Look at the keyboard, it's got paint on it or plaster or something like that. Bottom cover's got the same mess going on, you can see right about there. The screen is smashed on it, and I was given this laptop for free by a friend of mine because I helped her find basically an M2 MacBook at a decent price, and I said, look, instead of me making £30–40 out of you, just go there and buy that. So that's what she's done. She's not got a use for this thing, and I was just going to scrap it, but Apple computers and laptops hold their value really well, and it turns out that this thing, fixed and working, is worth about £200, and I could sell it I could sell it for £200 like that, you know, it'd sell in a day or two. So if I'm patient, I can probably get £220–240 for the thing. It needs a new screen assembly, and it needs a new Palmrest assembly, because even though the old one works okay, it's covered in all of this paint and all of this muck and grime. I know a lot of the keys don't press because there's stuff permanently jammed under them. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do today. We're going to disassemble this, transfer all of the parts into a new housing, put a new screen on it, and then fingers crossed it works at the end and I haven't just blown £80 on parts. I guess we'll find out. As you can see there, I have the MacBook connected to an external screen, and it's USB-C to VGA, which is just what God intended. I'm just going to cover the serial number, and then yeah, you can see that it's a MacBook Air, and it's only got 8 gigs of RAM. I don't know how much storage it's got, but I'm not too concerned about that. It'll either be 128 or 256. But the point is, now that I know it works, I can force power it off. So I'm going to break the rules there. I'm just going to keep holding until it switches off. There we go, and let's get it on the bench and let's get it taken apart. I apologise if you can hear any background noise. My 3D printer's running at the moment, so that's what that is. But anyway, I ordered this part, as well as the screen. The screen's turned up and it looks like there's no issues with it. But this piece, you might be able to notice there's a bit of a bend in it. And if I put it on my desk, look at that. That's just shocking. And the reason why it's so damaged, and you can tell that it's not my part, it's from an eBay seller. You can tell, the reason why it's so damaged is because it wasn't packaged properly. It was just sandwiched between 2 bits of cardboard, and that's it. I went to open a return, but the system just kicked in and said, don't bother sending it back, just keep your money, and I assume they were expecting me to throw it in the bin. But that's obviously not how I roll, so what I'm going to do instead is try to straighten it out. I mean, if it's a lost cause, it's a lost cause, but, you know, I want to try and straighten it out. See if I can make it flat, because if I can, then we can use the part and we've just saved £45. So I'll put the camera overhead and let's have a go at straightening this thing out, shall we? I think that if I give this a decent sort of shunt here and here, that it should pretty much flatten out. So I guess I'll start here, because if you look, that's where most of the bracing is, because it's a lot thicker for the touchpad. So let's give it a good shunt here. 1, 2, 3. Right, that's already made a big difference. That's flatter. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect because the laptop's going to bend it into shape, but it needs to be pretty close because I can't have a motherboard that's bending, and the bottom cover also won't go on because these MacBooks have got really tight tolerances. So if I can just, you know, the aim of the game is to be gentle here. You don't want to get impatient and just, you know, try and force it. I've got one shot here to make this decent. But as you know, metal has a memory, so I'd actually need to bend it a bit further, because otherwise it's just going to spring back to this state. So I might have to sort of lean it over the edge of the desk and stuff. If I need to take it off camera, then I will. Yeah. It's looking a bit better, but still not amazing. Oh, I put quite a bit of effort into bending that there. We are getting there, though. It doesn't look much better, but, you know, to my eyes anyway, it is a bit better. Alright, that doesn't look too bad, does it? And then it's just the bottom now that we've got to worry about. So, oh, God, right. Hey, that's starting to look better. Look at that. It's taken a few minutes of manipulation, but look at that. That is pretty much... I don't think I'm going to get it much better than that anyway. I'm actually quite surprised it's turned out so well. That really doesn't look too bad. So I think we can go forwards and use this part. I think the smartest thing for me to do would be to remove all the screws from the bottom cover, because we're going to try the new screen before doing anything else. And in order to remove the screws, I'm using a Pentalo P5 screwdriver. Now, if you're not experienced with Apple, then you won't know this, but Apple use their own special screws, a bit like Nintendo do, and that's in a fairly obvious attempt to thwart repair. A plastic container like this is really good to put the screws in, by the way. I've already removed it so it comes off easily, but we'll just lift up and there you go. It's got these little pegs here and they hold down on it fairly firmly. I've given it a very quick clean off camera, nothing special at all because we don't know if the laptop's going to work properly yet, so there's no point putting a huge amount of effort into cleaning it. All I'm going to do now though is disconnect the battery, and I don't have a guide in front of me, but I think I unplug this connector. Now, unsurprisingly, they've used a fairly strong sort of adhesive to hold this tape cover down, and it's torn off, that's fine, and then I should just be able to grab this and yeah, there you go. Right, so the battery's disconnected now, and then I want to remove the screen, and I can see right here there's two tiny screws holding down the Wi-Fi antenna, so that's a good place to start. God, and they're all these miserable tiny little Torx screws. And this is why it's really handy to have pots that you can put the different screws inside. I have a few spare, as you can see. Put those bits in there, stick it off to the side. Now, although I don't take Apple devices in for my business, I do have at least some experience of working on them. I obviously don't want to remove any more than I have to, but at the same time, because I've not fixed, because I haven't fixed many of these, I'm going to do it a lot more slowly than your average Apple technician would do. Right, I can see there's two screws on here that are going to need to come out. And yes, Torx is standard, I give you that, but having to switch between bits is really irritating. Right, so there we go, that's that removed. So this will unplug. There we go. So this job isn't actually difficult, it's just tedious. This laptop, I can sell it for sort of £220 when I'm done with all this, so it is worth doing. I don't normally take old devices in to repair and sell, but like I say, I was given this, so it's worth doing. But either way, imagine for a second this laptop was 1.5 years old and you'd broken your own screen by mistake. It's going to be a lot more nerve-wracking trying to do this job when you have a laptop that's still worth good money than it would be for me doing this job when the laptop's worthless. But those two are out, so now I think this little board comes away. I don't know if the antennas go first or if it's this board that goes first. This board might not even have to come out, like I say, I don't know. But right, that is, oh yes, this board is connected to the screen itself, so no, I've done the right thing there. All that stuff needs to come out. That's good news. And then to remove these antennas, I think I'll just pry them out. I hope I'm not mistaken in that thinking, because it's what I'm going to do. Oh, well, yeah, there we go, that's out. Brilliant. Last but not least, we have the 6 screws that are holding the hinges in. Now you can see that Apple cranked these bad boys quite a lot. So I'm just going to hold down, yeah, and I'm going to loosen everyone up. Doesn't matter what order you do them in, just take them all out. This is another reason why I like the pots though, because these are all for the screen, so you just stack them inside each other. Experience teaches me that I should just be able to open this up and then remove the screen. Let's see if that's how it works in reality. But luckily I'm replacing the screen housing and the palmrest, so I don't mind doing something like that. And then we'll just open it up, hear all that cracking. Right, this should just now come free. We'll open it a bit further. We'll flip it, oh gosh. Right, yep, ha, look at that. That wasn't even that difficult, all things considered. I've got the new screen. It's missing its bezel, which is fine because we can take it from the old screen, but I need to test it and make sure it works first. There's no point transferring a bezel over if it doesn't. Right, so I'm going to open up the hinges, and I'll do that by putting a screwdriver in, and very carefully, so I don't want to touch the glass part of the screen, just twisting them outwards. So you take them the full way, and you do the same on the other side. Brilliant. And now I should be able to pick the laptop up lift this piece and then line the hinges up with the body of the laptop. Now hopefully, might take a bit of fiddling. Right, there we go, that's in. I'm now going to press down really firmly on the hinges and just push the lid of the laptop into the desk, and that way I can close it. As you can see, I've put one screw here and one screw there. It's only temporary, so I'm not going to do the rest of them. I'm just going to plug this board in, and then I'm going to plug the battery back in. We're then going to open up the laptop, and fingers crossed it still switches on and works. Now, power button. Remember, I don't know if this thing's completely dead or not. It's not giving me the chime it gives, and the fan isn't spinning, so maybe it's dead, or maybe the charger needs to be plugged in. I'm sure Apple would approve of my nice Lenovo branded charger. Right, that's plugged in, and we'll just press the power button. I'm afraid I've missed that, but there you go. Laptop switched on, fan is spinning. Just going to close the screen down because I'm 99% sure there'll be personal information on it. But yeah, that's a nice shiny Apple logo. It's clear that the screen works fine. This is the old Palmrest. You can see it has a battery, touchpad, fan, daughter board, motherboard, and so on. If I put the new Palmrest down here, it's missing the touchpad, missing the motherboard, obviously, missing this little daughter board, but it still has a speaker, still has the battery, still has the fan, and it's got whatever's under here. So I'm not going to take everything out of there because I know this laptop was very heavily used, thus the battery has a lot of cycles on it. What I'm instead going to do is just remove the motherboard, remove the touchpad, remove this daughter board, and then all the other bits that need to come on over, and that should save a lot of time. The first thing to do then is to remove the touchpad, and I think to do that it's just as simple as taking these two screws out. I'll now unplug this connector, which I'm just going to do using my fingernail. So that's free. I'm going to leave the touchpad as it is for a moment, and instead I'm going to remove this connector. So that's removed, I can unplug it, but I may as well leave it connected to the motherboard. But it does need to be unpeeled from the fan, so there we go. Fan can stay where it is, like I say. That board can stay where it is. I need to be careful not to touch it actually, because that's the battery. So one little screw will give me access to this board, I think. And then maybe these two as well, I don't know. Yeah, these two as well. So that's all free. Awesome, that's coming out now, so I can unplug this connector. Always using your fingernail for something like this, or a plastic tool if you've just cut your nails or whatever. There you go, that's now free. Hilariously, they decided to use 6 screws to hold down the power button. I really hope it's got more functions than just being a power button. Maybe it works as a fingerprint scanner as well. But I've got to take 6 damn screws out just to get to this thing. I imagine this is a bit like Touch ID and the old home buttons on the iPhones and the iPads, in the sense that if you break it, basically you're finished, so just be really careful when you're removing something like this. Oh, and I think I actually need to drop it out at the bottom, yeah, and push it on through, okay. The next thing to do is to take the motherboard out. I unplugged this connector just so I could have easier access to the screws. I will also replace the thermal paste, but there's no point doing that until I've swapped the entire board and it's all in the new chassis. And look how tiny this board is, it's almost sad. I'm going to unplug the speaker, just like this, and then the USB-C boards, I'll just unscrew those from here instead of unscrewing them from the motherboard itself. Right, finally that's unplugged, and then the board is free. The final step then is what we did in the beginning. We need to remove the touchpad now. If you recall earlier, I said this cable was routed funnily, and it turns out, yeah, you need to remove the motherboard first, and then you can unplug this and remove it. Although there's quite strong adhesive on the bottom, so you do need to be fairly gentle when you're unrouting it. But now, all I've got to do, hopefully, is take out these 8 screws, and the touchpad comes free. When I said 8 screws, there might very well be more than 8. But I'm going to get these, and as usual, stick them in the pot, and then put that there. And I can see one more here at least. That's free. And then I'm looking at my other Palmrest, and this one needs to come out because it's holding down this black piece of plastic that it turns out I need. They can go in there, no problem. And then hopefully, oh yeah, look at that, the touchpad just comes straight out. Haha, brilliant. And you can see, covered in dog hair and stuff. Brilliant. If you do need to clean dust and dirt off of a touchpad, just be really careful you keep a hold of these pieces here, because they have a tendency to ping off, and when they do ping off, they're quite hard to find. I'm going to take a break now, but before I do, I'm just going to put the touchpad in, and then it can just get lined up, and obviously it can then be screwed into place. I've gotten it started off, so now I can just go the rest of the way. The trick though is not to tighten them up until you have a few of them in place. My plan now is to install the two plastic pieces that go here and the little board that goes up there. So the plastic pieces will surely be easier. Just a case of lining them up and dropping them into place. And then there's two screws. Very nice. And then this little board here, just going to very quickly sort of wipe it off with a toothbrush. It's not dirty, so you know, just I'll do that, and then we'll plug the speaker in. Click it into place, and then we can line it up and drop it down. Now this bit plugs into there, and then, right, yes, I'm forgetting, we need to put the fingerprint scanner stroke power button under there as well. Off camera, I've reinstalled the power button, and I've also replaced the fan. The reason why I replaced the fan is because when I give this one a spin, it spins for a good few seconds, whereas the original fan, or should I say the one that came with this Palmrest, would spin and then it would just stop near enough straight away, and that's not what you want. The fan needs to spin for a few seconds, otherwise it's either on its last legs or it's already faulty. Right, next I'm going to put the motherboard back into the laptop. The absolute last thing I plan to do is put the screen on. I'll explain why later, but for now, yes, the motherboard is going to go into the laptop. So we'll put this battery connector out of the way, and we're just going to lift the touchpad up, lift this up, and hopefully we can just sort of wiggle it all into place. So if I tighten that down, it's going to snap the board in half. So that's obviously not right, but we all know that this screw was here. So I'm very confused now. Oh right, okay, so the metal post that this screw goes into has come away from the Palmrest. And obviously on the new Palmrest I have, that metal post is still there. But right, that's free from there, we can put that piece of metal out of the way. And now, this board should actually sit in place. And it does, so that's crisis averted. Right, now I can screw it in. Right, brilliant. That's now secured, and so's that. Plug the speaker in. And we're starting to get somewhere, I think. I've jumped ahead a little bit, because I didn't think you'd want to see every last step of the process. But I thought I'd turn the camera back on just as I'm sort of wrapping up. So this little bracket needs to go over this piece. And then obviously I'm going to do the same as I have been, and I'm going to screw it down. But you're sort of seeing evidence here of why I don't work on Apple laptops, because there's so many tiny little brackets and tiny little screws. It's completely unnecessary as far as I'm concerned, and it's only Apple that do this. No other manufacturer designs their laptops in such a way. I've not worked on many Apple desktops, although I did once work on a Power Mac G5, and that was an absolute sort of nightmare to service beyond the basic jobs, although maybe I'm just not quite remembering it properly. Either way though, you've got to have super delicate hands, and you need to have really good eyesight. I mean, you couldn't do this job if you had, you know, if you needed reading glasses or you were long or short-sighted or whatever. You would have to have a microscope. Now I'm lucky to have really good vision, but you know, you shouldn't have to have good vision, I guess, just to work on something. That's in place. This little bracket here, I can't even remember where it goes, so I'm just going to put it out of the way for a moment. And then this, we've got some more screws in here, and I'm going to guess the two very long ones go here and here, and the short one goes there. So we'll do the short one first. Brilliant, and we'll just do the long two now. So you notice how often I'm having to switch screwdriver bits? I just want to make sure this is tightened all the way down, which, yeah, that's fine. I didn't quite have a big enough screwdriver bit for it. Right. Oh well, at least Apple put a headphone jack on this thing, right? Cool and cool. We are getting really close now. I'm not going to plug the battery in yet because we need to do the thermal paste. You see how many pots I've got, and I've already put 4 or 5 away. I'm going to replace the thermal paste now, and all I need to do is remove these 4 screws. There we go. I'll just put those out of the way, and then this heatsink should just lift off. And look at how puny that cooler is, you know? It's really, really disappointingly bad. So it's going to take me a minute or two, but I will be able to clean this thermal paste off. Yeah, there we go. Look, that's fine. Just going to have to go and find something to put this in. I've cleaned the CPU and I've cleaned the heatsink off camera. The process is to use a cotton bud, soak it in pure alcohol, and then go back and forth. And I've used maybe 10 of them. Normally it only takes 1 or 2. But Apple put this black pigment in their thermal paste for some reason. Please don't ask me why, because I can't answer. I really don't know. But either way, I'm going to put some of this stuff on. Arctic MX4 thermal paste. It's middle of the range, there's better stuff, but I've never had an issue using it personally. Now, I've put more on than most people would because it's non-conductive and any excess will just squeeze out. I'd rather put a bit more on and be safe than put too little on and potentially not be safe. So just wiggle it around. I'm not putting any pressure down, by the way, I'm just moving my thumb around. And then we can screw it down. Pick a random corner to start in, put the screw in and just start it off. And then start the opposite corner off. I've got a new respect for Apple technicians. Not that I can't do this stuff, I'm demonstrating to you that I can do it and it's not difficult, but it's so tedious and fiddly when it doesn't need to be. I'd hoped to use the original bezel because it looks okay, but then I realised in this corner it's damaged, and furthermore that it's glass, so when I try and pry this piece of glass off, even if I apply heat, it's just going to shatter. Instead, I found a thing that I can buy on eBay. It's only £9 and 6p, and it says it's for an M1 M2 2020, but the reality is it'll fit on my laptop as well. So I'm just going to make the purchase and wait a few days, basically. To save a bit of time, I'm just going to install the screen now, because there's no reason why I can't just click the bezel on later. I say click the bezel on, it's double-sided tape they use. But either way, just going to hold everything in place, line it all up, and then the same way that I did last time, press down firmly on the hinges and close the screen. There we go, now I can screw the hinges down. As usual, you'll notice that it's been the theme throughout the video. I'm not tightening the screws down, I'm just putting them in and starting them off. That way I can make sure everything's lined up perfectly, and then I can tighten the screws down at the end. And another theme as well is always make sure the battery is disconnected. You don't do anything until the battery's been unplugged, and if you don't have access to the battery, then make sure you're really careful until you can get access to it. Because if I have the battery plugged in and I connect the screen, there's a good chance I can damage the motherboard, because even when the laptop isn't switched on, there's always voltage going to the screen. And so if you try and plug it in and something shorts that shouldn't short, or it doesn't go in absolutely perfectly, it goes in at a slight angle, you can then end up damaging the motherboard, like I say. And that'll go behind there. There we go, something like that. Then will this lie down? Yes, it will. Perfect. Alright, I'm pretty sure that's how that goes. So we'll do these 2 big screws. I think we are finally done. That was very, very long-winded and there wasn't really any need for it to be, but we can now plug the battery in. There you go, battery's plugged in. I'll put that cover back on, and fingers crossed, when I put the bottom cover on, this thing will still plug in, switch on and work. Right, nothing's gone bang. Power button pressed, and it made me wait a few seconds last time. Right, there we are, we've got an Apple logo that you can see, and it's switched itself straight on. Unfortunately, it's only the 128GB version, but you can see that this laptop's obviously working fine. I've tested every key off camera, they all work as you would expect, so it's time to put the bottom cover on. I'll just get the charger out from beneath. That's fine, we can then put the Pentalobe P5 on. I'll just tip these directly onto the back cover. The 4 big ones go at the top, and then the rest of them go everywhere else. This is the difference between a good eBay seller and one who cares about their customers and a bad eBay seller. So they've sent me the bezel in this PVC tube. You can literally see they've used a bandsaw or a jigsaw or something to cut it. And then they've put the bezel on the inside. So if I just break the tape, using my cheap, rubbish old knife, I should now be able to pour it out. There we go. And look at that. Now this is a part made out of TPU, which is a plastic. And certainly doesn't look bad though, does it? It's got the tape on the back. So all I need to do is just peel the tape off and we'll be able to stick this on the MacBook. Let's just peel the tape. And off camera, by the way, I've blown into here just to remove all the dust and whatever else. But if I'm lucky anyway, I'll just be able to peel this off, line it up and stick it on. Right, stuck one side, stuck the other, and we're just going to move across the middle. That seems decent, and then I'm going to use something soft, so I'll just use the back of this knife handle just to really sort of dig it in. Now I'm not pushing down with silly force because there's a fragile ribbon cable beneath there and I don't want to break it. If I just push down, push down, push down, look at that. That genuinely looks really good. I'll bet the vast majority of people couldn't tell that that's a second-hand part and it's not even an official Apple part. But yeah, this laptop is pretty much done with now. Here we go then. Take a look at this machine close up. It actually looks really, really, really nice, and that screen was supposedly a C grade. I think the only reason why it was C grade is because it was missing the bezel, but that bezel does not look too bad if you ask me. It's only the 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gig storage version, but that's fine for most people, especially given people use iCloud or they use other cloud services. The date and time set correctly, I've tested the keyboard, I've tested all the other features of the laptop off camera, and it works exactly as it's expected to. And even if I go to close the lid, you can see it is genuinely a really, really good looking machine. There's a couple marks from some old stickers and whatnot, but they only show at certain angles and I can't see it making my machine any more difficult to sell. Here we go then, this is the final result. MacBook, all fixed, looking good, working exactly the way you would expect it to. My only disappointment is that sort of it's got these marks on the back. There might be some sort of a method to clean those off or get rid of them, but to be honest, I don't think it's going to do too much to impact the final sale price. A lot of people like to put stickers on the MacBook, or someone might buy it for their kid or whatever, so it's probably not going to be an issue. It might hurt the sale price by £30 or £40, but that's okay. Because if you remember, I got the Palmrest for free because it was damaged and I managed to bend it into shape, so I've not really lost anything if you want to look at it like that. Anyway though, it was nice to work on something different. I don't usually fix Apple, as I've said. I only did it because it was given to me for free. I probably wouldn't have bothered otherwise, I've got to be honest. There's plenty of things around here that I can fix without having to resort to fixing stuff with that logo on it. Anyway though, if you found the video useful, feel free to leave a like on it. Even better if you decide to subscribe, that way you'll see all the new stuff I put out pretty much as it comes out, provided YouTube's system doesn't fail, which it does half the time. But that'll allow you to see where the channel ends up going, because as you all know, if you've watched a few of these videos, I want to spread the repair message as far as I can, get as many people as possible fixing their own stuff, so that I can justify spending the time removing SATA cables from broken old desktops. That's all I've got for you today though. I'm not too sure what's coming out next time actually. I've got a couple of different projects in the works, so I suppose you'll just have to hang on and see what it is I end up putting out. Fingers crossed it comes out in about a week's time, but until next time, I'll see you later. Take care for now and goodbye.